Welcome to Rapid Fire Wednesday, Q&A for corporate immigration professionals. I'm Kimberley Robidoux, a partner in our San Diego office, and I'm here today with our co-managing partner of the Boston office, Miki Matrician. Good morning, good afternoon. Hello to you, Miki.
Hey, Kim.
We're still here in the studio in Boston.
Yes.
So I'm excited that I'm here live. It's been nice to be over here on the East Coast. A little break from San Diego.
Yeah, and I love chatting live.
Yeah, I do too. So we're live in the studio, and last week, we talked about what would happen if there was a Trump 2.0 administration. So today we're going to talk about what if there's a Harris administration, right? So now with the presidential elections coming up, we want to kind of like do a deeper dive into what to expect with either administration. And so this one is now that we have the nominee of Vice President, maybe President Kamala Harris and Vice President Tim Walz, who are the nominees for those positions. Let's talk a little bit more about what we would expect to see. So I'm going to kick it over to you.
Sounds great. We just wanted to do a little bit deeper dive because in June we talked about Trump and talked about Biden. And so just kind of a fresh look now that we're faced with the potential Harris administration. So, we wanted to talk about what HR and global mobility professionals should anticipate in terms of the immigration landscape, should it be a Harris administration. And, I think that her immigration stance won't be too different from Biden's stance. I would expect that she would continue to build upon what Biden has done so far. I mean, there are lots of problems, right, with our current system. It's very outdated by more than 20 years. And I think it's interesting to kind of look at her record in her previous roles to inform us of what we could expect. So in terms of when she was senator, Harris introduced some bills that would improve the fairness and efficiency of our immigration system. And there was one that she supported that aimed to eliminate the per country ceiling for immigrant visa numbers, so the green card numbers. And I think it's also, interesting to talk about her record as district attorney in San Francisco and California Attorney General. Kimberley, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So when she was DA in San Francisco, she really did focus on, abuses of immigrant workers. So that was one of her focuses, trying to eliminate the abuses of immigrant workers. And then when she was the Attorney General for California, she really focused on, the drug cartels and human trafficking. So that was really one of her key areas that she wanted to eliminate, specifically human trafficking, because it's not just U.S. citizens that are trafficked. It's also the, individuals that are coming across the border that are trafficked. So that's one of the things that she looked at. And then in 2014, she really did turn her attention to unaccompanied minors, trying to help them. So we see a humanitarian side to Kamala Harris and potentially with her vision of what the immigration system could be in the United States.
Yeah. And with the border being a problem right now, I think that under President Biden's administration, he had tasked her to lead the root causes of migration initiative to kind of understand why do we have so much migration from Central America. And she worked with Congress on a bipartisan immigration bill, which, as we know, ultimately failed. And then, we're talking about humanitarian stuff here. She also set forth a plan in 2019 for an executive action to help Dreamers gain a pathway to citizenship. And so, we know that she's a proponent of the DACA program.
Right. And then, we also would expect her to continue to support parole in place, which is fairly new, right? It was just recently announced. Expected, August 19th is the date of when we should have more information, or we'll have more information. And, just looking at how she's been an advocate for some of these programs to, in essence, streamline the areas where we don't have defined regulations, we could probably see a continuation of that, different parole in place programs, and then other humanitarian assistance as well.
Totally. And I think, she does understand the impact of immigration to a robust economy. And so, it'll be a stark difference from a Trump administration, obviously. And I think she'll continue along the path of supporting these legal pathways and those strategies. In terms of employment-based immigration, I think she will continue Biden's initiative on AI in supporting STEM workers and just a recognition of the critical need that the U.S. has for talent and the shortage of labor and skilled workers. And so I think that, and being hopeful here, that she will provide more opportunities for individuals with STEM degrees. There have been a lot of provisions kicking around in terms of, pathways for advanced degree holders in the STEM fields. And so hopefully those will be expanded.
Right. Because we want to keep our talent here, right?
Exactly.
If students are going to graduate from U.S. universities and colleges, it would be really, really good for the economy to keep those people here as workers.
Totally. We don't want a brain drain kind of situation.
Definitely not.
And I think, there could be an increase in the number of visas, H-1 visas too, and more job portability. And particularly, as you mentioned before, from Kamala Harris's time as a DA and AG, that, she really cared about whistleblower protections for foreign national workers working for employers who are violating employment laws. So I think that there will be more of that on the way. I think how much she can accomplish, though, really is going to depend on what does Congress look like, right? So if it's a Democratic-led Congress with a Democratic White House, then a lot more would hopefully get accomplished. But I think in terms of her stance and her initiatives, there probably will be more activity from the government side in terms of worksite compliance and enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do anticipate larger compliance programs either under Trump 2 administration or under a Harris administration. That is something that we, will continue to see, and it will increase with respect to compliance for I-9, for H-2A, H-2B programs. And as you mentioned, it really will also depend on what does the component of Congress look like, right? If there is a Democratic-controlled Congress, we might get some immigration reform. There are a lot of Republicans that are willing to reach across the aisle to put forth a comprehensive immigration program. So that would be something that we could potentially see with a Democratic-controlled Congress as well as a Harris administration. Some of the other things that we had talked about is, if there is a Republican-controlled Congress, we're going to see more executive orders, just kind of continue to piecemeal immigration. But as opposed to a Trump administration, these would be more beneficial to both employers and on the humanitarian side as well. So those are a couple of things that we would see. What we were talking about as well, increase to Schedule A occupations, right, which would open the door for a lot of more individuals to get the green card in a quote unquote faster way. So that would be one option that we could see. Some of the other policy updates that we could potentially see is an increase in the visa renewal program with we'll call it stateside visa renewal program that would have a significant impact on, and a positive impact on employers and employees of being able to renew their visas here in the U.S. rather than spending weeks or months abroad.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we could see.
Yeah, totally. And I think, the pilot of the stateside visa renewal program that happened earlier this year, with that, we would expect that they would expand on that and launch it for a wider group of people.
Yeah, because it seemed to work pretty well.
Exactly.
They were happy with it.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. And then, what else could we see by the end of this year? I mean, if there's a Harris administration where they're going to focus on compliance, but what are some of the other key takeaways that we would want our HR and global mobility partners to think about?
So I would say that HR and global mobility should audit the terms of the employment that foreign nationals have right now as compared with what was previously approved in the petitions, right? And I know we said that for the Trump administration session as well. Anytime there is a change in the terms and conditions of the employment, employers should be looking at that, knowing that HR might be the last to be informed about such changes. I think it's a good time, a good opportunity to take that and take a look and make sure everything is in order. Another one, is in terms of the green card, same thing, right? I mean, the change from in-person work that's conveyed in a green card application, a perm application, change from that to all remote. That's another thing to be on the lookout for. Make sure that all the ducks are in a row.
Yeah, and that's really good advice. We're talking about preparing, so kind of preparing for a worst case scenario. And not politically speaking, but just looking at what the policies of the administration could be, right? So worst case scenario for us, from an immigration perspective, if there's Trump 2.0, Harris might be a little bit better, but as you're mentioning, there's still going to be tightening down of programs, and it still is good for employers to get things audited and have an understanding what's going on, because when the elections happen in November, there's not going to be a lot of time. So getting that head start in September, October is probably going to be a good thing. And then maybe breathe a little sigh of relief in November until we see what the policies could be, or just go full throttle and making sure that those strategies are implemented.
Totally agreed. And I would say, we mentioned I-9s, but also don't forget about the labor condition application public access files and, perm audit files, and then, files for your STEM OPT employees. So those should also be buttoned up.
Good point. All right. I think that's a wrap for Harris, right? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Miki. It's been fun chatting. And for our viewers out there, if you don't already follow us on WR Migration, please do follow Miki and myself as well. And then we always turn our Rapid Fire Wednesday discussions into a newsletter to which you can subscribe. So see you next time.
See you next time. That was fun.